Welcome. I'm Pat Croce, and this is the American Cancer Society's HEALED Community Gathering. HEALED, health and energy through active living every day. And we come together once a week, every Wednesday. It's at noon, but starting next week, it'll be 11 a.m. So put that in your calendar. From now on, 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time will be our community gathering. I want to first say thank you to our presenting sponsor, 6ABC. We love you. Our leadership partners, and all of you who've come to ACSHEALED.com, made a contribution, whether it's $5 or $5,000, it doesn't matter, and got one of our bracelets, our HEALED community bracelet with that one green bead to signify we're all in this together. We start our gathering every week with just a moment of stillness. So just place your attention lovingly and gently on the sound of this bell. Voila. We are in the present moment together. All of us together. No past, no future, just right now. And every week at this time, it's our intention to inform you, inspire you, encourage you, educate you, entertain you, all of you, to just get a little more movement in your body, to get a little more movement in your mind, and a little more movement in your spirit. Body, mind, and spirit in the positive, right direction. And that's what we bring in guests every week, and it's been so good. This is our week 11, our 11th gathering together, and we've had such a cadre of guests. And today I'm excited to present two more to you. And if you have any questions, you can post them. We're on Facebook and YouTube, and Diana comes on at the end of the show and brings up any questions that you may have had addressed to our experts. And our first expert is Alicia Jeffreys. Alicia is the Senior Vice President of Marketing for the Detroit Pistons. That's right. I used to be with the Sixers, but she's a Piston, and she's coming to us from Detroit. Hello, Alicia.
Hi, Pat. Thanks for having me today.
It's great to have you. And let me just tell them a little bit about you, because not only are you a marketing guru for the Pistons, but more importantly today, that Alicia was diagnosed with a rare form of cancer, 1 out of 1 million people. And the cancer diagnosis is multifocal chordoma. Chordoma, I've never heard of it. It's a form of cancer that attacks the spinal cord and the base of the skull. And let me tell you what kind of warrior this woman is. In addition to working and maintaining a work schedule and a wife schedule and eventually a motherly schedule, during the 3 years that she received treatment for this chordoma cancer diagnosis, she underwent 7 surgeries, 116 sessions of radiation. Let me put that in perspective. I thought I was tough. I had 1 surgery for a T-cell lymphoma on my skin and 15 sessions of radiation where it burnt my chest. I couldn't wear a seatbelt. I couldn't lie on my stomach. She's had 101 more sessions than me. Alicia, before we go anywhere else, and that was over a 3-year period?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Mine was maybe a 2-month period. How did you maintain a positive attitude, a stick-to-itiveness to life when it just kept coming and coming and coming?
Yeah, well, I appreciate that question. I was 28 when I was diagnosed. I was newly married.
When was that? What was the?
2008.
Okay.
So I did not have children. We had been trying for a little bit to start our family. And so when I got this diagnosis, it was definitely a shock to the system, as all cancer diagnosis is. But my anchor through the 3 years was my dream to be a mother. and to actually start my life with my husband, which had just gotten started. And so that really grounded me in you got to get to the next day. You got to get to the next surgery. You got to get through the 116 radiation treatments.
Did you know it was going to be that many to start?
No, when I was first diagnosed, they found the one tumor at the base of my spine. And through some testing, realized I had two more areas, one under the brain and one in the lower back. And with chordoma, and because it's your spinal cord, you have to treat each one as a separate cancer. And so that's why it took 3 years. And that's why it was 116 radiation treatments, because each one had pre and post radiation outside of surgeries.
And what kind of surgery? Do they go in and extract whatever the tumor is?
Yeah, so they remove the tumors, and chordoma wraps around the spinal column. So as an example, my L3 and L4 vertebrae were completely removed. And I have a cage that created a new spinal column for me.
Wait. Now, as a physical therapist, athletic trainer in a past life.
Think through that.
I know of disectomies, and sometimes there's a fracture of the spinous process or the transverse process, but they remove the entire vertebrae?
The L3 and L4 were completely removed. So one surgery, about 10, 12 hours, stabilized with hardware, from the back. And then they went in from the front and removed the actual L3 and L4 and closed the cage to create a new faux spinal column for me.
Alicia, wait. We got to make sure that our members and our listeners understand that the spinal canal is made of your spine. It's got a hole down the middle for your spinal canal. Mm-hmm. All those nerves that go from your brain to every limb. And if they're ever severed, you either become a quadriplegic, a paraplegic. So the spinal canal is exposed, fully exposed when you take away the spine. Mm-hmm.
Yep. So I actually received direct radiation while my spinal column was exposed during surgery. It was a very intensive treatment. But what I want to tell you, Pat, is it took me, to your point, 52 weeks to learn how to walk again.
Oh.
So in 2009, I came out with, the full body brace, a walker. And so hands-free, it was 52 weeks before I walked again without a cane or a walker.
And that was the L3 surgery?
That was the L3, L4 surgery, yeah. To your point, they removed part of my spinal column. So
for all of our listeners, this lumbar is the L, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And then you have your sacrum.
Yep.
You go upward, you have your thoracic, your chest, your ribs are attached to. So of the 5 in her low back, 2 of them were extracted, removed totally. And so right now she has an erector set inserted in her low back.
I'll have to send you the x-ray. It's pretty good.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
I wasn't going to jump right. I was going to hear more about your path to the Pistons, but the 116 radiation treatments just blew me away.
Yeah, it was a lot, but I had tremendous care, and thankfully, I went to a research hospital, Mass General Hospital in Boston, and they were very progressive and aggressive because of my age and my goal to be a mom, and they wanted to.
So let's stay with this L3, L4 surgery and the radiation that followed, and the 52 weeks of physical therapy to get you walking again. Mm-hmm. Do you have any radicular pain down your legs, or any numbness or tingling or weakness?
Yeah, so that's a great question. I actually ended up having late onset neuropathy in both legs. So in my left leg, I have foot drop. And then in my right leg, I have, numbness from like knee down to toes. I'm still able to walk unassisted, but I might fall every now and then. So,
do you have a plantar strap or something that you put in your left shoe?
Yeah, so on my left leg, I have a brace that I can wear. I don't have to wear it every day. If I'm conscientious of lifting my foot when I walk. But for long walks, I do have a support.
Okay, so then take us to the next one. That was the first surgery of L3, L4, and then you get diagnosed with another tumor?
Well, so L304 was actually the second. My first one was the sacrum. So they thought it was just a cyst on the bottom of my tailbone. And that's actually how I found my cancer. I was uncomfortable sitting in my chair. And they said, oh, I can feel a little bit of a palpable cyst. We're going to remove that. It should be no big deal. And that pathology is what started the whole chordoma exploration when they realized it was malignant. So that was my first. L4 was my second. And then the third was actually the tumor they found at the base of my skull. So as you mentioned, it's right directly below the brain at the very top of the skull, spinal column. So they actually removed that tumor through my nasal passage.
Oh, you got it.
Oh yeah, it's a whole thing. So if you can imagine, it's in the middle of your head. So between your ears and your nose is where the tumor is. So it's deep in there. So that's the best way to get it out. So that's how they got that one.
Was that at C1?
It was right on top. So
right on top of C1.
Yep. So that's when they did not have to take the bone. They sort of shaved the top of the spinal column. Sort of.
So do you have any radicular pain or numbness in your hands?
Yeah, no. So luckily that one was pretty at this point without any ancillary anything after the fact. So I'm pretty good 10 years out. So
you're 10 years out from treatment or from the diagnosis?
I'm 10 years out from the first day I was considered cancer-free.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Yes, this year marks my 10th year. Yeah.
That's a sacred decade. Oh, that's good. What a reason to celebrate.
I'll take it. It's good.
Yes. And so when do you go back for reevaluations?
So I did every year for the last 10 years. So I actually hit the mark where I can go every couple. And so I do all my scans every year locally, MRIs of my basically whole body. It's a 2-day process, if you can imagine. Head to toe MRIs. So.
Wow. And so before we even go back even further to you coming on with the Pistons, take us now from the past 10 years, because I know as I said, how did you tough it through this? And you said as a wife and you wanted to be a mother. Even through this treatment, you still wanted to have children, correct?
Yeah. Yes, for sure. I think every time I had a radiation treatment, the doctors knew that I was going to ask, am I protected, right? Are all of my reproductive organs covered before they hit the button? I just made sure everything was good. So, I was diligent in that regard. For me, though, how I got through is, I think I've shared this with Diana, is that I really consider myself just an ordinary person who had to deal with an extraordinary event. So I use HOPE as my acronym, how ordinary people endure.
Oh, say that again.
Yeah. Oh. How ordinary people endure. Because I really thought a lot about it, and everybody would always say, like, you said, you're a warrior, you're incredible, you're a hero to us. And I'm like, but no, I'm really just an ordinary person who had to find a way to endure through the moment. And so I live by that sort of mantra for what hope means to me. And then the other piece was just, I think, my attitude towards it. So I smiled through cancer. I think it was rooted in my father. He's a very jovial person, so I kind of inherited that from him. But I literally had to smile through every moment to get to the next day. And so really that positive affirmation for myself is what helped me, I think. So many smiles.
How was that positive affirmation, that smiling, keeping you from projecting to the future and staying in the now? How did that happen?
Yeah, I had to, through the process, because it was such a long process, I literally had to go day to day. And it was 3 years of day to day. But that's how I had to chunk it up, because I couldn't think to my next surgery. I couldn't think to the next tumor. I couldn't think to the next 30 radiation treatments. That's the overwhelming piece. And so I had to sort of isolate out the singular day in the present. What do I have to do today to make myself feel good today, to improve, to progress, to, go through treatment today? And that's literally what I did. There were moments, Pat, that in the middle of surgery, in the most painful moments, where I would count the minutes. So I would count 1 to 60 to get to the next minute. I distinctly remember overnight, like in the middle of the night, in my hospital bed alone, counting in my head 1 to 60. How do I get to the next moment in my life? And that's really how I had to go through it.
There's an old African proverb that I used to use in my motivational talks. The best way to eat the elephant standing in your path is to cut it up into tiny pieces.
Yeah.
Well, if you are not the book example of that metaphor, of that saying, that's truly amazing. So motherhood, and I can cheat, and I don't feel uncomfortable with asking you because I know that you are a mother.
Yes.
Tell us all about motherhood. How did this happen after this being the driving force to get through 3 years of treatment and surgeries?
Yeah. I'm sure for young cancer patients, young women especially, that this is a concern and, maybe something that creates added stress. I literally spoke with my radiation therapist and said, when is the first month that the radiation will be out of my body and I can safely carry children? And within 9 months of my last treatment, I was pregnant.
Oh my goodness.
Yes. So 18 months after my last treatment, I was blessed, double blessing with my first set of twins. First set.
Boys, girls? 2
girls who are now 9. So you could do the math. That kind of makes sense with my 10 years cancer-free. And then 4 years later, I was blessed with my second set of twins. So the reward, the payoff of this trauma in my life was great. And they're also girls. So 4 daughters. It's very emotional at my house, Pat.
Oh my goodness. 4 daughters.
Yeah.
God graces us in the most spectacular, miraculous ways. And you wanted motherhood. Yes. And you had to take a little detour for those 3 years, but
yeah, it was very much my good and faithful servant type of feeling where I was like, okay, he's going to deliver above and beyond my prayers, my expectations, and saying thank you for going through this part of your journey, and here's your reward. So.
And how are the children doing, Alicia?
Oh, they're great. I mean, other than virtual school, and the last year has been a little crazy. They're wonderful. Everything beyond whatever I could have wished for. They're so good. And
they're healthy.
Yes, everyone's great. We did a lot of genetic testing to make sure that the chordoma was not considered familial. So, God willing, they will be healthy in their life and not inherit any of the genetic mutation that I had.
And the $10,000 question to you is, how are you feeling after being pregnant? And the pregnancy had to be fairly large in both these instances, delivering twins.
It was fairly large. And Pat, I know we haven't met in person, but I'm a fairly small person. So I'm only 5 feet in stature. So there's not a lot of space in there. It was an interesting pregnancy. I was on bed rest for 5 months, if you can imagine, with the weight on my lower back. So I did bed rest for the first pregnancy, but by the second pregnancy, our bodies are miraculous. I had healed so much that I had 0 bed rests for my second pregnancy of twins after, again, already having twins. And I was completely fine, and there were no issues. So really the human body is incredible.
And no issues through the consequences of the chordoma?
No, I mean, for the pregnancy, I did have to have, a C-section under general anesthetic. So I had to be put to sleep in order to give birth to the babies because they couldn't give me a spinal.
Oh, yeah. How could they?
Yeah. So I was actually under general anesthetic. So I was not the first person to see my children. When I came to, I got to see my kids. But
you're just a miracle. Like, this is wonderful. And let's just share with everyone, because you're a senior vice president for the Detroit Pistons.
Yeah.
You head up the marketing department, which everything that comes under that. Give us, how did that start with you? It was 20 years ago?
Yeah. So I'm in my 19th season actually with the Pistons, which is great. It was my first career postgraduate school, University of Michigan. And I got a sports management degree, but I was always an athlete growing up. And so, but I realized my limitations, 5 feet tall, probably wasn't going to play college athletics. So how do I remain involved? And that was sort of my path. And luckily the Pistons really sort of embraced me. They became, especially in this moment, they became a support system, making sure that I had a job after 3 years.
Well, that's where I wanted to go. So that you come onto the Pistons in 2002?
Yeah, they 2001-02. Yep, that season.
Okay, and now it's 2008. So you've been there for 6 years or so, yep. And now you are diagnosed with chordoma cancer and everything that it entails. How did the organization support you?
So at that point, I was like working my way up and trying to sort of grow in my career, and it was just sort of taking off. So I knew the organization really well, the executive team really well. One of the challenges with a rare cancer is finding care and doctors who can treat you for what you have. I had to leave Michigan in order to find the best doctors for my care. So you can imagine from an insurance standpoint, those doctors are out of your network. And organizationally, our owner at the time made a decision to put every one of my doctors in Boston into our network. Talk about my loyalty to this company you can imagine, everyone knows medical expenses and bills, that essentially put my out-of-pocket expense to almost nothing, which was incredible. And then over the course of 3 years, they let me come in and out and communicate from afar with my team and be involved, and sort of just embrace the process with me. They didn't want me to worry about having employment at the end of this.
And how did you feel about that?
I'm definitely still here. So, so the loyalty piece was big for me. I was appreciative of sort of that extra level of support, which they weren't required to give me. They literally are just some of the best humans that I've met in my life to be able to say, like, we're going to embrace you in this moment.
Wow, I like to embrace you. And I can't not say what a warrioress, because I don't know. I mean, we have some great guests on. All of our guests are great, but spine, and to have
it was a lot.
The chance of paralysis over 3 years. Can you share with our community, before I let you go and then bring you back later on in the show, can you share with them any insights, input that you would give to anyone who's been diagnosed with cancer?
I would say be your best advocate. You have to know what it is you want out of your treatment, out of your life. I had a reason why I wanted to live the next day. And so I would say find whatever that inspiration is for you to keep going. And that will help you get through.
Beautiful. Alicia, thank you. Thank you. We're going to bring you back now.
Okay, great.
Yep, talk to our next guest, but thank you. Wow. Yeah. What a story. That should be on some show on television, believe it or not. Our next guest is Dr. Nance Lucas. Nance is you're going to like, this is a little different. Nance is the executive director of the Center for the Advancement of Wellbeing. She's the chief wellbeing officer. I've never heard of that before in my life. She's the associate professor of the School of Integrative Studies and former associate dean of School of Integrative Studies at George Mason University. She's the co-author of Exploring Leadership for College Students Who Want to Make a Difference. She has a focus on psychology, leadership, well-being, and ethics. And Nance, Dr. Nance, come on. Dr. Nance Lucas. I'm going to call her Nance if you don't mind. Hi, Nance.
Hi, Pat.
Nance, you got to, before we get going into everything else about leadership and well-being, what is a well-being officer?
Well, as a well-being officer, I have the best job at George Mason University, in that I get to promote and advocate for resources that really allow and help our community members to thrive at higher levels. And before I go too far into this, I was really struck by Alicia's story. She's a powerful example of a resilience warrior and someone who has a thriving mindset. And I mean, it was just amazing to hear her journey of talking about, it took her 52 weeks to learn how to walk again. And I loved her metaphor of hope, how ordinary people endure. And to me, that's what a thriving mindset is. And that's what the work of a chief well-being officer is to really help everyone learn how, in their own way, with tools, evidence-based tools, to thrive at higher levels in their lives and to develop stronger resilience muscles so that we all can respond to everyday stressors and distress and anxiety in healthier ways, and to be able to take in the good with the bad with the good, and land well.
Resilience muscles. I like that. Would you qualify that for us? What are resilient muscles?
I think having really the strength and the skill set to learn from your mistakes, to kind of come back from setbacks stronger. We all experience different kinds of shipwrecks in our lives, whether it's, we, had a love life that didn't go well. We got turned down for the dream job opportunity in our lifetime. And so having stronger resilience muscles allows us to go through those grieving loss processes in healthier ways, so that we can land well and learn from those experiences into our next encounters.
So are there the tools that you teach at George Mason University? Are those tools available for everyone? Is it nature or nurture?
That's yes, that's the $1 million question, Pat, right? At the Center for the Advancement of Wellbeing, we truly believe that you can learn how to have stronger resilience in your life. You can learn how to respond to challenges. And some of these well-being practices, like gratitude, for example, really allow you, I think, to experience life, in a different way. And those are things that you can learn. You can learn how to be more mindful. And at George Mason University, I think we're a little unique in that the university has a university-wide commitment to well-being. So it is in our 10-year strategic plan. And the goal is for Mason to evolve as a model well-being university. And so we have the whole university committed to this. And we offer academic courses for students around well-being and resilience. We have non-credited experiences for students to learn and grow in their levels of well-being. We have learning opportunities for our faculty and staff. So it really, our goal is for well-being to live in the DNA of the whole university. And the Center for the Advancement of Wellbeing's mission is to serve as a catalyst for human well-being. We take the word catalyst to heart in what we do here at George Mason. So we don't own all these, hundreds of programs, but rather we inspire other areas of the university to create experiences for our students and our faculty and staff to learn about these evidence-based tools. We even have in our School of Music, we even have an academic minor on music for well-being.
Really? What does that entail?
So it entails a couple courses that look at how music impacts your well-being, how sound impacts your well-being, how music and arts can have healing impact on you. So it's it kind of has a whole range, and it's open to all students, not just music majors.
Nance, let's go back one step just to make it very remedial. What do you mean by well-being?
Yeah. Well, Mason, we define well-being as building a life of vitality, purpose, resilience, and engagement. So that's our simple definition.
Say that again, please.
Building a life of vitality, purpose, resilience, and engagement. That's how we define well-being at Mason.
And is there any one of those four the priority?
Well, I think I'll just say this. This is, there's so much science now around well-being, and one of the things that we do know is that social engagement and social connections are the number one driver of well-being. So this notion of engagement, in our definition really gets at, having high quality social relationships in your lives will really positively impact your well-being. And it doesn't mean having 1,000 friends on Facebook. It really means having, the depth of a relationship with someone that you can, share your life with, and have social support, from those individuals.
And from your vantage point at the Center for Advancement of Wellbeing and our general membership of anyone who's been touched by cancer or been touched by someone who's been touched by cancer, how can you share some of those tools, tactics, and methods of maintaining or enhancing your well-being when you know your body is or their body has been touched?
Yes. And, Pat, we have on our website, the center's website, we have a whole host of free resources. We have something called the Thriving Together series. And we've covered a range of topics on that look at physical health, mental health, and nutrition and so forth. That individuals can look at. It's a very practical, applied series. So if you want to learn more about, how nature impacts your well-being, they have a whole article on that also includes evidence-based practices and other resources and short video clips that you can watch. So that's all free. There's so much more that is there that is free that can help people. So I'd really encourage, our spirit here is to give away as much as we can because we want to see the tipping point happen in the world where the vast majority of people move from languishing to thriving.
And how can our community address that? What is that thriving on the website? Where would they go?
So they will go to our center's website, which is wellbeing.gmu.edu.
Say that slowly again. And Scotty, hopefully you're getting this so we can put it on the scroll.
Wellbeing.gmu.edu.
Right. And then look at what department was that you were talking about, the thriving?
So that's on our website and it's under resources and it's called Thriving Together series.
Thriving Together series. It sounds wonderful. It sounds wonderful.
Actually, we created it out of the COVID moment. And when we thought, what can we do as a center? What can we do to reach people virtually and to give people evidence-based tools that they can easily do? And I can tell you, so many of our Mason community members and our friends of the center, which are outside of Mason, have really commented on how these simple articles that really give you a snippet of science behind it, and then some practices along the way that really has been helpful.
Someone who's an expert on leadership, positive psychology, well-being. You mentioned COVID and you mentioned social interaction. How did those two clash over the past 18 months?
Well, in a big way, because of the isolation. And so, prior to the pandemic, I think we have really been experiencing greater numbers of people reporting that they're lonely. So the loneliness is increasing, at least in our country, for sure. And part of that may be, kind of how our social media practices have led us. And part of it is, I think we have a little bit lost our way of how to really, create and maintain, community in our lives. And a lot of that's because of, we're so hooked into all kinds of technology. We're, constantly responding on Snapchat, Instagram, Facebook, emails. And it really, I think, has distracted us from kind of having the opportunity to establish, social connections with one another. During the pandemic, we saw that only increase, tenfold because of the isolation factor. And so, we've encouraged, at least within our community, to find ways, uncommon ways to get together and do things virtually, whether it's through Zoom or other kinds of platforms, and to make that, practically an everyday habit, and to still connect with people when safe to do so outdoors during the pandemic, because that really is key. The fact that you even know that you have a social support to go to psychologically is healthier for you, even if you don't use that social network. So that's how powerful that is.
And Alicia just mentioned that relative to her 3-year hiatus off and on with the Pistons getting treatment, but there was that support not only from her family, but also from her work environment. And so what if they don't have that kind of support? How can they develop it?
Yeah,
especially with cancer patients.
Yeah, and I think, now we see so many hospitals and medical caregivers understand the importance of that social connection, where, there are within cancer institutes and hospitals and medical centers, social support groups. And I know, as someone who also had was diagnosed with cancer, my surgeon,
Wait, stop for a second. Hold on. I'm not sure I knew this or remembered this or forgot this. What diagnosis of cancer did you have, Nance?
So I had fortunately, stage 0 breast cancer. So it was caught extremely early.
By screening?
Yes, by a normal screening, by a normal annual screening.
That's important because we preach that all the time on this hour.
Yes, that's right. And so I would echo that as someone who is vigilant about that. And it was caught early. So I had it removed and went through radiation as well. But I remember sitting in my surgeon's office, and she was giving me, prior to surgery, all different kinds of information. And she gave me a resource of all different kinds of cancer support groups. And I thought, wow, that is really important. I did not access any of those groups because I do have a very strong social support group of friends and family of choice of my own, including my family too. But for those who don't, my advice is take a risk and join one of these support groups, and kind of put yourself out there, because the world is full of compassionate people who want to support each other. And that, there's so many people who you have never met who would really want to help you. So I think that's really key, is to, and don't be overwhelmed by all that's available to you. Pick one, make yourself maybe a little vulnerable, and enter into it.
I love that word, being vulnerable, because that's what most people, not me. I was one of those in the past, so I understand, especially males. That is almost like, no, that's not how we were trained. But that vulnerability is invincibility, because no one can touch you when you know you're fully open, honest, aware, vulnerable. I mean, it's beautiful. It's a great part of well-being.
That's right. That's absolutely right, Pat. And I think, and even with these, evidence-based well-being practices, some people, we encounter like, oh, that's not for me, or, oh, I don't know about that. I like to say, get out of your comfort zone and into your learning zone.
Oh, that's good.
And just try one, or try a number of them, because there's not one size that fits all. And I think what happens is, we're too hard on ourselves. I often hear people who say, well, I can't meditate, because I just can't get focused. And I'll ask, well, how did you start? Well, I tried to meditate for 30 minutes and I couldn't do it. I'm like, well, okay, try 1 minute. Start with 1 minute. Just try it 1 minute and do it in your way, whatever that looks like. And then when that works, increase the time. Go to 2 minutes until you master that. And maybe that's all you'll do. And that's sometimes just what your brain needs, is just a 2 minute being present and focused in the moment that will really help you set your intentions for the day. And so, and if you start to feel your mind wander, and we all have it, during these practices, just gently bring it back, but don't be so critical on yourself. And so that's the kind of advice I like to share as people think about, these various well-being practices. And they don't work for all. So something that works for you, Pat, may not work for me, but I have my own practices, that I like to do, that are my go-tos, and they work for me.
But what you're saying, Nance, is be available, be open, be vulnerable, and take the risk in trying it. Just give it it can't hurt you. And
right.
you said something, you echoed something from last week. We had Dr. Erica Rees-Punilla, who is the exercise scientist heading up the HEALED in Atlanta for the ACS. And she said, do something is better than nothing, and more is better than something. And that was relative to physical fitness. You're saying the same thing about mental and spiritual fitness.
That's right. Yes, exactly.
I love where you're coming from. I love the whole idea of the Center for Advancement of Well-Being, because it's the body, mind, spirit. It's not one, not two, it's everything. And it ripples out to everyone. When you realize we're all in this together, that little green bead we wear on our HEALED bracelet, that's really what it's about. Because if we're not suffering, we're not causing suffering. Yes. And if we have positive vibes, we're sharing positive vibes. And that's what you're all about: positivity, well-being, leadership. And before I let you go and bring Alicia back to have both of you, just touch on the leadership capabilities of everyone.
Sure. I think, all of us have the opportunity to be leaders. And I like to use the lowercase l, leadership and leaders, when I talk about that. You don't need to have a formal position to take on leadership responsibilities and to have a positive impact on people and on organizations. And I also think it's, an opportunity and responsibility of leaders to positively impact the well-being of those that they're leading. So again, that's that ripple effect. And all of us on a team have the responsibility for caring for the well-being of our teammates. So I like to think that formal leaders in organizations really, they set the tone and the conditions for human flourishing in organizations. And so
Oh,
they
I love that word.
talk with all of the well-being concepts that we talk about.
Oh, I love that word, human flourishing. You got some great lingo.
Mm-hmm.
Dr. Nance Lucas, stay right with us. Alicia Jeffreys, come on back with us.
So
Alicia, I think you should have a cameo appearance at Dr. Lucas's School of Advancement for Wellbeing, because you are kind of the textbook of it all.
Let me know, Nance. I'm here for you.
All right, great. Thank you.
So I have Diana. Diana, are there questions?
Yes, we do have some questions, and we have lots of really great comments in support of Alicia, and everyone's very, very inspired by your story. So we just want to let you know that. And the first question is for you, Alicia. You talked about your goal of becoming a mom as you went through your cancer treatment. What advice do you have for young female cancer patients who hope to have children post-cancer treatment?
You know, I will maybe reiterate what I said about being an advocate for yourself. If you know that that is one of your goals, you need to make sure that your doctors are aware, so that if they can, with your treatment, provide you options to make sure that that can be an option for you in the future, you should do that. I think sometimes we get in the situation where we're in the room and, you know, this is the path, this is the treatment. And sometimes you just have to raise your hand and say, okay, that's great, but does it still allow me to do what I'd like to do in the future?
Diana, how about Alicia? The next day after she was allowed to conceive, boom, your husband must have been on a tether. You must have reeled him in.
It's like, we're doing this.
So Dr. Nance, the next question is for you. And you talk about the science of well-being. So what kind of research is going on in this area now, and how is it affecting your program and the things that you teach your students?
Oh, sure. Thank you. That's a great question. Well, I'll just say this, that finally the science has caught up to these age-old well-being practices, for sure. And I think, you know, the greatest contemporary discovery in science is neuroscience. So we know now so much by looking at brain scans and brain imagery, how people respond to things like meditation, practicing gratitude, practicing kindness. You can see different parts of the brain light up when you do these practices. And so that's what I refer to. These are evidence-based practices now, although they've been done for thousands of years, but now we have great science to back them. And so, and everything that we do, you know, from our center, we lead with the science. So we have our own senior scholars and scientists at Mason connected with our center. They're Mason faculty who are doing research also in these areas on the research on emotions and the impact of that on teams and organizations and well-being. We have faculty engaged in research on social networks and how that impacts students' well-being. And so there's a wide range. And our website has some of the research on there as well.
Diana, before you ask the next question, Nance, relative to gratitude, a tool of gratitude, do you use a gratitude journal? Like, what do you recommend?
Yeah, you know, and that's a great question, Pat. And I would say whatever works for you. And for some individuals, it's writing every day in a gratitude journal. For others, it's writing a email to someone and expressing gratitude, or delivering a gratitude letter to a person that has made a difference in their lives. I did something last year during COVID that I learned from a colleague of mine that she did. And I took up her challenge, which was to engage in thinking of 1 to 2 blessings every single day in my life, which is a form of gratitude, for 365 days. And I didn't start there. I was practicing gratitude before that, but I was ready for that. And I'll tell you what a big impact. Sometimes I wrote it, but sometimes I just did it as my morning, meditation. And for some people that works for them. It's just kind of even thinking it and mentally thinking about their gratitude and who they're grateful for, that also gives them a boost. So it's whatever works for you.
Beautiful.
Okay. So Alicia, piggybacking a little bit on what Dr. Lucas was just saying, during your 52 weeks of rehabilitation when you were learning to walk again, how did you keep your positive focus and moving forward and keeping in the moment and, taking it day by day and keeping that positive momentum moving forward?
Yeah, well, it was an interesting time because, through my cancer treatments, I had lost so much weight. So I think I was, shy of 90 pounds at that point. And as you know, you're exerting energy and calories when you're trying to rehabilitate. So I would literally do an exercise and then I would sit and eat a protein cake or bar, and then I would do my next thing. So that's just a little side tangent of sort of the process of it all. Again, I just really wanted to walk again, right? I was 31 at that point. And I'm like, I've got a whole lot that I need to do in my life. And so again, it goes back to that anchor of whatever it is. So one moment was kids, but the other piece was, I really just want to have an active life. And if I don't do these next 52 weeks, I may not walk again. I may not run again. I may not be able to chase after my children. I may not be able to get up and down off of the floor. It was very rudimentary things that are just a part of your everyday life. And so I just had to want it bad enough.
And what you're not saying, Alicia, but you are subtly saying, is that your let it go muscle must have been really strong, because you had to have negative thoughts come through your mind and you let them go so that you kept the positive psychology that Nance is talking about.
Yeah, absolutely. And I definitely don't want anyone to think that there weren't those terrible moments that you would think. I think there was probably one moment where I said it out loud, that I said it to my mother. I said, I don't think I'm going to make it. And the moment the words left my mouth, I could feel just that energy that I had projected on my mom. And it was just a terrible feeling. And the look on her face, I never wanted that to ever happen again. So I retracted that in that moment. And from that moment forward, I don't think I ever said that again.
Wow, that's amazing. And so, Dr. Lucas, one last question for you. I'm getting back a little bit to the data. What are you seeing as far as you have all of these students who are graduating and going through these wellness programs and learning about wellness and becoming centered? What are you seeing the results in the companies they go to and the cultures of those companies? Are you seeing any kind of data to show that there is a positive impact?
Oh, yes. Well, anecdotally, yes. We've not been tracking our alumni who've gone through our programs, but I do have a story that I think really illustrates this. A colleague of mine at Deloitte, who is Chief Wellbeing Officer there, many years ago, I think it was about 5 years ago, they were creating a big well-being focus in Deloitte. And so, and she was appointed the new Chief Wellbeing Officer. They sent an email out to all their employees saying, we're going to create this program, and if you're interested, let us know. And so she received about 5 emails from George Mason University alumni who said, we went through well-being courses and programs at our university, and we want to help. We want to see this happen at Deloitte. And so we know that, this is the ripple effect, right? They're taking it into their work lives. And we also have other kinds of tools that our students are exposed to, like the Clifton Strengths Assessment. They take that, they love it. It gives them agency, having them see what's right about them versus what's wrong about them. And then they go into these companies and say, hey, I think we should get our team or our whole employees taking this assessment. And so they're inspiring that as well.
That's amazing. That's all the questions we have, Pat.
Okay, I just have one last question for Dr. Nance Lucas and Alicia Jeffreys. If you would just, you've said so many good pings that people say, and they're maybe writing down their journal, or I got to try that. Give us one more each that you think is just a treasure, that if you did this, the well-being of you would just shine. The shining that you truly are would glow.
I'll start. I don't necessarily have anything amazing to say other than you're probably more resilient than you think you are. Mm-hmm. Human body is incredible, probably both in the mental and physical space, and it's more resilient than you think. So it can take a beating and still bounce back.
Well, you're a great example of that, Alicia. Oh my goodness. Mm-hmm. And Nance?
Yeah, I love, Alicia, what you just said there. I would add to practice self-compassion, to really learn, how to love yourself, to be less critical of yourself, to be gentle with yourself, to find love within you. I think that's where it starts. It's the inner self-compassion that I think then can drive the external compassion to others. But it starts with you.
Beautiful. Dr. Nance Lucas, Alicia Jeffreys, Diana, and Scott Sill, our producer, thank you. Thank you for making this hour of healing power so wonderful. And for all of you, once again, thank you for joining us. Go to acshealed.com. Spread the word. This movement is starting with us. This is our 11th week, and we're just beginning. It's Healed, Health and Energy through Active Living Every Day from the American Cancer Society. And we always end with a prayer. And this prayer is just, you'll love this, Nance, a prayer of gratitude. Thank you for the grace in helping me to welcome what is happening right now. And that's that now you had for 3 years, Alicia. Now. There's only the now. We live the now. Live it to your best. Thank you all. See you next week.
Thank you.
Peace.